Hello, sixth graders. Welcome to sixth grade math multiplying decimals lesson. Pause while you write the lesson title in your interactive student notebook. Pause again while you write the lesson objective in your notebook. Today's lesson objective is I can find the product of a whole number and a decimal and find the product of two decimals by completing practice problems with 100% accuracy in multiple attempts. The Arizona State Standard we'll be working on today is fluently add, subtract, multiply, and divide multi-digit numbers, including multi-digit decimals, using the standard algorithm for each operation and assess the reasonableness of the result. Please note that you will see the yellow pencil icon at the top of the page. That means that you need to copy this key idea into your math notebook. The key idea says multiplying decimals by whole numbers. Multiply as you would with whole numbers, then count the number of decimal places in the decimal factor. The product has the same number of decimal places. Please copy the examples as well. That will help you understand your notes better. Example 1, multiplying decimals and whole numbers. Find 6 times 3.91. So we're going to estimate so we can check our answer at the end. 6 is 6. We're going to round 3.91 to 4. So 6 times 4 is 24. That's our estimate. And then we multiply. And I always tell kids just ignore the decimal point while you're multiplying. So the difference between multiplying decimals and adding or subtracting is you don't need to line up the decimal points when you're multiplying. You do when you're adding or subtracting. So we take the 6 and we multiply it by the 1, and we take the 6 and we multiply it by the 9, and that's 54. And so you put the 4 down at the bottom and you carry the 5, and 6 times 3 is 18 plus 5 is 23. So you would have 2, 3, 4, 6. And then you count 2 decimal places from right to left. So when I do this, I'll write it larger. We have our answer 2, 3, 4, 6, and I swoop in 2 places till I get to the decimal point. And since I had 2 swoops in my factor, I'm going to swoop twice in my product. So it comes out to be 23.46. And then we check to be sure it's reasonable. 23.46 is close to 24. So it's really important to be estimating here before you start, because you want to be sure that you are in the right decimal place, so that if you ended up with 234.6 or 2.346, you should know that you did something wrong. Now, it's always a good idea when you're multiplying a decimal by a whole number to put the whole number on the bottom and the decimal on the top. Remember, your commutative property of multiplication lets you multiply in any order. So you're going to estimate 3 times 0.016. 3 times 0 is 0. Now, obviously, you're not going to have 0, but you're going to have something very small. So we multiply, and we get 0.048. So if we were doing this on the board in the classroom or on a piece of paper, it might look like this. We would get our 0.048, and we would go 1, 2, 3 swoops, and 1, 2, 3 swoops in the bottom. Sometimes you don't have enough zeros, so you have to add those. So it says to have 3 decimal places, insert zeros to the left of 48. So 3 times 0.016 equals 0.048. That is very, very close to 0. So it is reasonable. There are other times when we can use mental math. how high is a stack of 100 dimes? Method 1, multiply 1.35 times 100. So this is using the method that we just learned in the previous example. So we multiply by all those zeros and then we move our decimal point. Or it says you are multiplying by a power of 10. Use mental math. There are 2 zeros in 100. So we're moving the decimal point in 1.35 2 places to the right. We move it to the right because we are multiplying. So we move it 2 places because there are 2 zeros. So 1.35, and we want to move that 2 places to the right. So that's going to equal 1.35 times 100 is going to equal 135. So sometimes it's easier to just do those when you're multiplying by a power of 10. Do those in your head. So the stack of dimes is 135 millimeters high. Here's another key idea to write down. It says the rule for multiplying 2 decimals is similar to the rule for multiplying a decimal by a whole number. This is a little note before the key idea. If you feel like you need the note, write that down as well. Multiplying decimals by decimals. Multiply as you would with whole numbers, then add the number of decimal places in the factors. The sum is the number of decimal places in the product. So we do what we just did, and we add up the number of decimal places in both factors. So be sure you copy this example into your notes as well. Let's do an example where we're multiplying decimals. 4.8 times 7.2. So 4.8 times 7.2, we multiply the 2 times the 8 and the 2 times the 4, and that gives us 96 on the top. I usually fill in this spot with a 0, but the book does not. And then we multiply the 7 times everything on the top, and then we look at how many decimal places we have. We have 1 on the top and 1 on the bottom. 1 plus 1 is 2, so we swoop in 2 in our product. So 4.8 times 7.2 is 34.56, and our estimate was 5 times 7, so that's 35. So that's very close, very reasonable. And then we have 3.1 times 0.05, same operation, 5 times 1, 5 times 3, and then we can skip doing the zeros because it's just going to add a bunch of zeros that we have to add to everything, which muddies things up. So we could stop there, and then we add our decimal places. 1 on the top, 2 on the bottom, so that's 3 total. So we have 0.155, and our estimate was 3 times 0. So as you can see, that's reasonable. Now we're going to look at evaluating an expression, so don't forget to use your order of operations. So step 1, we're going to subtract first because the minus sign is in parentheses. So here's your subtraction, 4.5 minus 3.175. So you can see how the publishers of the book have lined up those decimal places and added zeros on the end so that they could borrow and make everything nice and neat. So they have 10 minus 5 is 5, 9 minus 7 is 2, 4 minus 1 is 3, and then they have their decimal point, and 4 minus 3 is 1. So they have 1.325. And then step 2 is multiply that product by 2.44. So they multiply that, and they have 3 decimal places on the top and 2 on the bottom. So that's a whole lot of decimal places to march in, but you have to do it. 2, 3, 4, 5 decimal places. So all of that equals 3.233. So the correct answer is A. Here's our real life application. You buy 2.75 pounds of tomatoes. You hand the cashier a $10 bill. How much change will you receive? So if we look over here, we can see that the tomatoes cost $1.89 a pound. So we have to find our total cost of the tomatoes. So we multiply $1.89 by the number of pounds we bought, which was 2.75. So we multiply that, and the top number has 2 decimal places, and the bottom number has 2 decimal places. And so we multiply that as normal, and we add up the number of decimal places, and that's 4. So we count in 1, 2, 3, 4. Now it doesn't show you an estimate here, but if you had done an estimate, you might have rounded 1.89 to 2, and 2.75 to 3, and 2 times 3 is 6. So there could be your estimate, and 5.1975 is pretty close to 6, so you know you're on the right track. So the cost of 2.75 pounds of tomatoes is $5.20. So that's rounded because it's money, and you don't go to the grocery store and have them charge you these funny amounts of money. They round it to the hundredths place. And then we have to subtract the cost of the tomatoes from the amount of money that we hand the cashier. So $10 minus $5.20 equals $4.80. So that's how much change we get back. Don't forget you need to complete your notes in your interactive student notebook, finish your Google form questions, and review the lesson if you need to. Also, complete your Big Ideas math assignment in your Math Spiral notebook and submit that when it is 100% correct. Don't forget to track your progress on your playlist.